I'm John Germanis, City Manager Emeritus. I'm pleased to be able to present this video on the City of San Leandro's history, a city on the move. I became a city employee in 1971 and retired as city manager in 2008. I had the opportunity to work with the mayors that are featured in this video during the time they served on the city council or on the school board. These elected officials provided the political leadership required to implement programs and projects to enhance the quality of life in San Leandro for its residents and businesses. The city's growth and development during the first 100 years was chronicled in the book, A Garden Grows in Eden. City Manager Chris Sabata asked me to reach out to the former mayor to document the city's history of growth and progress from their perspectives. Hearing this story firsthand through this video is not only informative, but it provides an insight into the rewards and challenges of serving as mayor of the city of San Leandro.
I had been on the council now 7 years, and very close. I was vice mayor twice in the 7 years for a year term. It was a very hard thing for the council to deal with Dave Karp's sudden death. Very hard thing to deal with. Julian Poverosa was vice mayor, and he didn't want to be mayor because he didn't want that full-time job. And I agreed to be appointed mayor and not run for the office because I didn't think I could be in business and still run the office.
People weren't expecting to have a young lady like Ellen Corbett running for mayor. And I got lots of advice, and a lot of people basically came to me and said, "You really shouldn't run, you know. The people of San Leandro will never elect a woman as mayor." And so instead of being concerned about that, it motivated me. In fact, made me a little angry, and I said, I can do this. I wasn't maybe going to get as many endorsements, but I knew I had to work very hard to win, and that it had to be a very grassroots campaign. Everybody was surprised. The press was surprised. The Daily Review ran an article the next day, you know, how a woman had won as mayor of San Leandro. It was a great experience, and it allowed me an opportunity to do a lot of community building during the campaign, which was very important to my work as mayor in town.
Maybe the youth of today don't understand what an old boys club is, but we clearly had one, and it did not, until the mid-90s, include women. Ellen Corbett broke that ceiling when she was elected mayor in the early 90s. When I did win, I did win the mayor's race, and I had an awful lot of people helping me work that race and win that race. But when I won, I think it signaled a change in the whole San Leandro story, because we no longer were divvying up seats because they belonged to someone. We didn't give them out because it was predetermined. It proved once and for all that another woman could lead the city.
I did want to potentially get into politics seriously to see if I could do things for people. That I always want to credit those who are truly responsible for, you know, certain events or whatever, and not me per se. I try my darndest not to use the word I as much as I can. I like to feel managing the Kaiser project was quite an achievement. I really think too, going through the citation project was really quite something. I learned a lot about municipal government. Talk about achievements. I think the council of 2006, 2007 had a major achievement in budgetary matters that no one out there knows. And the fact of the matter is, that council carried this city through the bad times from '08 to now. Because that council, which I was a member, working in concert with my colleagues, put away $24 million in reserves in our economic uncertainty. That was as a result of Mr. Germanis taking a look at this and figuring that we need to do something about reserving in case of any future financial crisis, that we'd be cushioned for it. And we were. And that city council and that city manager should receive great accolades for what they did, because that 24 million carried us through the crisis.
Once we bought a home, moved into San Leandro, then I felt like I wanted to get involved in the San Leandro community. And my wife was a teacher, and she was always talking about her classroom and about education issues. And I got very interested in that and started to make connections and decided to run for school board. We moved to San Leandro in 2002, and the first time I voted as a San Leandro voter was in 2004 when my name was on the ballot. It was very important to me that our city hall also be reflective of the broader community and that there be true equal opportunity both in the hiring and the promotion process. So one of the things I did as mayor was we had a work session specifically on this topic, or having the HR department provide the statistics of where we stood today, where we stood a few years ago. We look at City Hall, and our city manager is Latino, our assistant city manager is a woman, our police chief is a woman. I mean, many of the department heads are women, and we have Asian Americans, African Americans, Latinos, persons who are gay and lesbian, all serving in City Hall.
The launching ramp was the first project in the marina area. And they did a study of the marina, and what evolved from that was the construction of the golf course and the harbor. And the fascinating thing about those two projects, in my opinion, was the fact that the city financed those two projects on its own. There was always discussion as to whether or not the city could afford the harbor, the dredging, because it was a heavy cost, and the city, from 1973 on until maybe 2001, relied on the federal government for the funds to pay for the dredging. Those federal funds dried up, and the city today is allowing the harbor area to go back to nature.
Strategy was to have the federal channel named the Maltester Channel so we could keep funding for dredging. And it worked for, I think, two dredging cycles. But after that, the Army Corps of Engineers didn't want to do any pleasure marinas anymore.
While I was mayor, I had the opportunity to work with the federal government and the Army Corps of Engineers to advocate for additional funding to dredge our channel that takes you out to the bay, the Jack Maltester Channel, as a matter of fact. And it silts in every so many years, and it has been a challenge over the years. It is quite an expense. I personally, though, especially during the time I was mayor, felt that it was extremely important to keep the marina operating as a marina, and I thought that the amenity of people being able to house their boats in San Leandro was very important.
Citation property goes back actually to 1964, when that property was owned by Trojan Powder Company. Trojan bought that property in 1904. Now, if we can picture that site in 1904, nothing out there, right? Completely empty, vacant. It was wetlands and whatever else it was. You could put whatever kind of structure you wanted to on there. You didn't have to go through a big permit process to do it. And they tested explosives out there for years. And if you still walk the site, you could still see structures from Trojan Park there. So eventually, in 1978 exactly, Citation purchased all of that property out there. They no longer could build on 220 acres because that was declared to be wetlands. Ended up with being able to construct on 90 acres. They had to forego. And out of this, the city was negotiating a dredge spoils area. I believe overall, there's ended up with about 429 acres of open space. They had to cut an opening to allow the property to become wetlands in areas of it, in and around the golf course that is where that area is. So I think overall it was, I mean, again, my view, that was a net plus for the city. Preserving 429 acres.
When the time came for us to work on the shoreline and the wetlands, it was a great concern that we turned that land back into actual wetlands and habitat for some of the endangered species of the San Francisco Bay. At one point, there was the Trojan powder plant there. Dynamite was manufactured in San Leandro, part of our manufacturing history from way back. And of course, the land had been diked and levees had been built in places where probably they shouldn't have been built. And we had some interest by the federal government that land be turned back into wetlands. And it has made a great difference in the San Francisco Bay, bringing back many shorebirds, And the wetlands provided a dual purpose. We were dredging the marina every so many years to keep the channel open. And it was necessary to find a place to more economically deposit the dredge spoils. And so part of this project was to create these islands that created habitat. So when, a day's rainy season or when the water rose, there was a place, again, for nesting and the harvest mouse and the clapper rail and the various species to be able to live. And those islands and the habitat were created with the dredge spoils. And so it was a more economical way of being able to keep that channel open, and it was a win-win because it provided habitat as well. So we now have that beautiful area where there's the trail and the bike path, and you can ride along San Francisco Bay unimpeded for many miles along those beautiful marshlands that we created and were successful in restoring. San Leandro Creek is very near and dear to us because it's one of the few open flowing creeks in the whole Bay Area. Many of them have been channeled over the years. And it's another place where it makes San Leandro unique and special because it provides habitat. Anybody who lives near the creek can hear the owls at certain times of the year and the hawks that nest in the creek and see them raising their young every spring. I've had the opportunity to observe that. And San Leandro Creek is really caught the attention of a lot of people in town. And as many people know, the Friends of the Creek was formed, and a lot of work was done to restore the banks of the creek, to replant native species in the creek, and to really bring it back to its more natural state and continue to be able to offer it as a free-flowing, open channel all the way to the bay. And I remember the dedication of Root Park after all of the fun and work that went into really recreating and restoring the banks of the creek. It's a beautiful amenity and another special little bit of nature right in the middle of the city. The whole council was on board for improving the main library and to turn it into more than just a wonderful library, but a gathering place, a community gathering place. And that's what it is and what it has become. And I think it's really one of the jewels of San Leandro, our community library. People go there to do research, to find jobs or to polish up their skills. People go there to use the internet because they might not have, Wi-Fi or a computer at home. Students spend time there. There's all of these great meeting facilities. We have the, summer reading programs and the carnivals and the festivals, and it became more than just a place to go check out a book, but a place where the community could come together.
I was on the city council when the work started for the new library. I think so many groups use the library that the staff at the library can tell you there is never a day when it's not in use. We are very, very fortunate here to have free library use. We're very envied throughout the county for our library. So we have the 9-hole marina course, and we have the 18-hole Tony Lima course. We named the entire facility the Monarch Bay course. We have a nice new driving range facility, which is double-decked, and the 9-hole marina course is probably the finest public course in the Bay Area. The 18-hole course was redirected so that the views from the tee boxes are of San Francisco. And they market it that way very well, and people are always amazed when they go out on the back nine and see that fabulous view.
I recall this building going up for sale, and Mr. Germanis coming to us, the city council, said the building for sale is, I think it's for sale for $500,000. I think that'd be a wonderful site for a city museum, and that's how this structure came to be. And I think we all unanimously supported the idea, and I think it's a fine asset.
We could finally have a museum, and then perhaps even add an art gallery and a performing arts center. We used redevelopment money. We did that a lot. It was a nice way to do things for the community in those days. Today, of course, that's not possible at all. And so began the long process of building this building, and when we opened, it was miraculous. We really loved it. We have a performing arts center in the back, and an art center in the middle, and then, of course, the museum.
The Washington Manor Library was one of our very important branch libraries, and that's one of the great things about San Leandro. We still have branch libraries, really important, so that someone can jump on their bicycle and ride over to the library to get their homework project done, and very important part of the Washington Manor community as well. And again, there were lots of council members who were very interested in someday seeing a new branch built. After leaving mayor and becoming a state legislator, I had the opportunity to have all that experience about how important a community library really was for a city like San Leandro. And I was able to, as a member of the library, the state library construction bond board, as it was called, to work on looking at the San Leandro project. There were hundreds of projects throughout the state that applied for these construction bond monies. And we were, San Leandro was just one of many, very, very competitive. But I was very proud that I had the opportunity to be one of the people taking a look at that. I didn't make the final decision either, but I had the opportunity to help people understand how important that project was, and was so excited when San Leandro was one of the few libraries that were chosen to receive funds.
Ellen did get the money for that. I think we were one of the last cities to get that. Was it $1 million or a couple of $1 million? However much it was, we were very grateful to get it. And she was there for the opening, so it was a nice, pleasant thing to do. And it was opened shortly before I left office, so I was lucky to get my name on that building too. It was kind of hard in the beginning to get kids interested in participating. I think somehow they felt they wouldn't be listened to, it really wouldn't happen. But when we finally got some of the students interested in applying, of course we got the cream of the crop. And the cream of the crop were so bright and so intelligent, and so they just added so much to our plate that we thought we knew what the youth in the community wanted, and we really just didn't know. They created for themselves an annual program. They decided that it was time that they brought together youth from other schools. And so they created something. The very first one I remember was called Piece by Piece. So it was P-E-A-C-E by P-I-E-C-E, Piece by Piece. And what an incredible bunch of kids. They brought together folks to talk about violence and all the things that happen in high school or elementary school that follow through to high school, that carries all the way through, that help them understand that it goes on in all schools. And they came up with, their own criteria for resolving some of those problems, for conflict resolution, that were just phenomenal.
We got very involved in earthquake preparedness too, because everybody kept saying we're going to have a lot of earthquakes, and we were worried about the Chabot Dam.
San Leandro was really out in front of so many communities throughout the country. We knew that the possibility of a major quake is always there with us, and there's a lot of predictions that it's not will it happen, but when it will happen. And so in San Leandro, there was a lot of proactive work around getting the community ready. San Leandro, I think, was one of the first cities in the state of California to hire a disaster preparedness coordinator. One was a program to teach people how to, in a do-it-yourself project, actually retrofit your home, do the cross bracing in your basement. And we developed a tool library. And if you didn't feel that maybe you could do it yourself, at least you then, after the class, had the opportunity to understand what you needed to talk to a contractor about. So that was just a very, simple program, really, to get the community involved and really interested in understanding how important it was just to do a little bit of work in their homes to ensure that their foundations were secure in case of an earthquake. The fire department worked with the community and trained individuals to be able to help out in their neighborhood in the event of an earthquake, because as we know, public safety personnel might not be able to make it immediately because there will be so many events that they will be called to. So we have people trained in the communities to help out, to help their neighbors. And we developed programs to make sure that we knew how to communicate with people in the disability community and care for them in the event of an earthquake. It was an El Nino year. We had serious rainstorms, and we had, it was kind of an unusual landslide. It wasn't really a mudslide. They called it a hillslide because in the Bay Vista area, in the hillside neighborhood, an entire portion of the hillside cracked deep into the earth and started to rotate and move down towards homes. And so we had several homes that were right in the path of this very slow moving, but nonetheless moving large portion of the hill. I didn't think there was anything else we could do but try to save those homes. Those individuals were going to lose everything if we didn't do what we could to try to save their homes. We moved two of the homes that were closest to the slide to the street to see if there was a way for us to rebuild their lots and move their homes back. What's the engineering feat? What's required of us to put this hillside back together again? And the state ended up granting us $3 million, a little more than $3 million for the project. And then we were also able to work with the federal government and received, I think, $1.5 or $2 million more dollars to put the hillside back together again.
The Senior Commission came about, obviously, because we were all shocked that we didn't already have one. So we created a Senior Commission. At the same time, we decided to build a senior center. The Senior Commission did play a great part in making the choices about not only, perhaps not where it would be, but they certainly were involved heavily in the programs and decisions about the things that would be offered at the senior center. I think they visited a number of like centers throughout the county to make sure that we included as many things as we could that were there for people in that age bracket. The concept of having an arts council, we could add everything from music to theater to art itself. And so we decided to do that. I don't know if I talked anybody into it or if it just sort of came about as a thought that I had to create an official arts council, but we did that. And then we got people to serve there from the Art Association. We brought it all together under the Arts Council.
How do you nurture the soul of a community? Well, you support the parks, you support the library, but you also look at the arts, and that was a major initiative that occurred as I was mayor. So we had an arts town hall where we brought folks from across the community and reached out to the artists to come here and say, how can we make the arts more thriving and vibrant? And out of that meeting was the desire and the articulation to create an arts commission. So we created that, and that's a 9-member commission of folks that, across San Leandro. Some are directly in the arts, some are supportive of the arts and want to see greater progress occur. And we're meeting now. I serve on the Arts Commission, and we're looking at ways to promote the arts here in San Leandro. There's some steps have already been taken. We have a beautiful mural on across from the BART station on the gymnasium at St. Leander Parish School that highlights the migration of the monarch butterfly, which of course comes through San Leandro. And we're looking at other avenues, such as making the utility boxes more interesting, putting different designs on those. We're also looking at creating a funding mechanism to sustain the arts, and requiring that major developments put aside a certain percentage of the funds for the development for artistic improvements. While we don't have an ordinance yet, I'm hopeful that we will. And one of the examples of how that can have a major impact on a community is what's happening at the new tech campus, where there's going to be a major statute put into place. And that came through by communicating to the developers that we wanted to have an art component as part of that project.
San Leandro was one of the very first cities to have a Costco warehouse. And the original Costco was actually in an actual old warehouse building. So it had not been built for the store. We got word that Costco might be moving to a nearby community. We were quite concerned about that. Not to mention the fact people love shopping at Costco. It's very convenient. You can find anything you want at Costco. But also it generated a lot of sales tax revenue for the city. We started to talk about, well, what are we going to do about this? And I said, you know what? I'm going to call the president of Costco. Jim Senegal was the president of Costco at the time. So I literally called him up. I said, what would it hurt? All we had to ask him is, why don't you look in San Leandro for a new place? If you want a new place, we can help you with that. In addition to that phone call, we had this huge rally. The community really organized around this. They did not want Costco to leave, so we had this big rally down at the old Costco store, and one of our local friends brought in a billboard from the billboard company, and the community of San Leandro came and signed the billboard. This is very good use of the redevelopment agency. We were able to put together some parcels of property right across the street from where the old Costco was, and all Costco asked from us was to help find a suitable parcel of land, and could we work with them in our permitting process so they could be opened by the next holiday season. So we set to work, streamlined the process, and were able to work with them to build a brand new beautiful Costco store in time for the holiday season. Sausage and Suds is a great San Leandro event. We were looking for some sort of downtown event to bring people together and have fun, and it sort of came from some brainstorming, and when we realized we had several small brews, some are not with us anymore, but Drake's was one of the very early small craft breweries in San Leandro. We realized we had several sausage manufacturers. So the idea was to have this downtown festival, nothing fancy, good food, cold beer, and music. Just another example of the many creative things that I've done to help keep the downtown successful. You know, bringing those people downtown for sausages and suds makes people want to come back and shop in the downtown area and the farmers market that we have now in San Leandro. It's all really good stuff that's really helped develop and grow the downtown, which is so very successful now.
Madison Marquette was the developer who came in and recommended rebirth to the Bayfair Center, they call it now. And as a result of that, we ended up with movie theaters. I believe there are 16 screens. And once the theater was there, it really gave an opening for all the other stores to come and join them. The first one that came, I think, was Target. There are 2 restaurants on the outside perimeter of their Starbucks. The very first ever drive-through Starbucks, I believe, in the country. Bayfair is well built out and thriving as far as I can tell, and we hope that it will remain so.
San Leandro Hospital, of course, is such a very, very important part of our community. We have we've always had a large senior population in San Leandro, so having health care nearby is extremely important. And when you have a hospital, you of course have the opportunity to have doctors' offices in your community too, so they can be nearby the hospital for their rounds. And so when I heard about the potential for San Leandro Hospital closing, I knew that I had to do what I could to stop that. So we definitely rallied the community, had several open town hall meetings, brought in experts, brought in community members from other parts of the Bay Area that had had a potential for their hospitals closing, asked for their experiences and asked what they had done to be successful and keep their hospitals open. But we were able successfully to bring so many community members out to speak out about it. The decision was made to keep the San Leandro Hospital operating. I think it would have been a terrible loss to San Leandro. We would have lost the hospital. It would have impacted the surrounding small businesses. We would have lost the doctor's offices, and we would have lost a close-by emergency room. The happy ending is the new Eden Hospital was built in Castro Valley, and it's still doing very well. San Leandro Hospital is still open. It still has some challenges, but it's still open and serving our community. And I really believe it was worth the fight. And I know, just from talking to the citizens of San Leandro, that was one of the most important issues, around. People still come up to me and say, "Thank you so much for saving San Leandro Hospital."
Well, it actually came as quite a surprise when I got a phone call in my office from someone from Kaiser. They wanted to acquire the property where Albertson's distribution center was, and they wanted our help to make that happen and to make sure that the city would be a welcoming partner in bringing a nonprofit to a site that previously produced profit. Because the distribution center, of course, created a huge tax incentive for the city, and when Albertsons left, it put a big hole in our finances. But having that hospital right on the corridor, the 880 corridor, meant that the traffic would not impact the citizens as much as it would if it were internal, like on East 14th Street. So we were all in favor of doing that as long as we could figure out a way to make dollars and cents for the city. In the end, there's about 30 acres, I think, still remaining that can be developed for some brick and mortar stores, hopefully, that will bring a large incentive in the tax world for us. But Kaiser is now completely finished, and what an amazing structure it is. It is a real asset for the city of San Leandro, and I know that everybody is really pleased with it. And we've had at least 4 mayors who've put their handprints on that building, so it's one that belongs to all of us.
The Kaiser Medical Center is the largest project in the history, construction project in the history of the city. It commenced in 2005 when, it maybe started before that, because that used to be the old Lucky Market Distribution Center. Lucky sold to Albertsons, I believe, and Albertsons ran its corporate headquarters and distribution center out of there. Kaiser Permanente had purchased the property and wanted to consider constructing a hospital there. Kaiser had to move from Hayward because the Kaiser Hospital in Hayward could not be retrofitted seismically. They considered putting that facility here in San Leandro. And with that, I know Mr. Gimanis negotiated the real estate property transfer tax fees with Kaiser. I forgot how much money was received. Then when I became mayor in 2007, Kaiser was in the planning stage for constructing the hospital. Kaiser paid for all the traffic improvements in that area, and I really think it's working out quite well, and I'm if I can be proud of any one achievement, I guess it's that. It's the crowning achievement for all of us, because in my opinion, that hospital is going to be the centerpiece for this city for maybe the next 50 or 75 years, if not longer.
One of the major things that happened under my term as mayor was the opening of the new Kaiser Hospital. And this was nearly $1 billion investment in San Leandro. It had started years before, but it came to completion and opening while I was mayor. And that, too, is changing the reputation and the awareness of San Leandro. When I started as mayor, we were still in an economic downturn. The unemployment rate locally was over 10%. The city was in a budget deficit. And I realized that one of the primary goals that I needed to accomplish as mayor was to try to revitalize the local economy, to get San Leandrons working again, and then have more commerce locally, which in turn would generate revenue for the city that we could invest back in programs and activities for the public. There have been major initiatives over the years to promote retail in San Leandro through creating the Auto Mall, bringing in Costco, keeping Bayfair going. There have been efforts to have new housing development, but that had all come to a conclusion, so to speak. The city was built out. Most of the major areas for retail had already been constructed. And thus, how do you get the economy going when those avenues aren't available? And I realized, well, we need to look at our industrial area that was underutilized, and specifically, we need to look at the Bay Area economy as a whole, and what was the defining characteristic of it? Well, we were the world's innovation center. One of my goals was to embrace the innovation economy and hopefully then transform our industrial area. So no longer would it be warehouses and storage facilities, but it would be new office buildings and new manufacturing that would then be employing multiple people, not just a few watching a warehouse. And it wouldn't be just a few jobs, but it would be well-paying jobs. So that was the initiative or the thought process behind trying to get the industrial area revitalized. Manufacturing is part of our DNA. We had the best Caterpillar tractor. We were producing computers and telephones. And while manufacturing in America went on a downturn in the 70s, those roots were still here. We still had food processing. We still had specialized manufacturing, specialized computer parts. But we could attract businesses that were new startups in San Francisco and Silicon Valley and Berkeley that were looking at expanding, but the price of commercial real estate there was just sky high. We embraced the innovation economy in a way that I don't believe we had done before, and created a position of chief innovation officer to bring in businesses, created the fiber optic loop, worked with marquee local businesses like OSI Soft to keep them here and to allow them to expand, and to create new opportunities such as the Gate, which is a medley of different advanced manufacturers, including a real emphasis on 3D printing. On my first day in office, I went and visited Dr. Patrick Kennedy, who was the CEO of OSI Soft, at the time one of the largest employers, private employers in our city. He wanted to create a loop around the city using a conduit that the city had installed for the traffic signals years earlier. So again, this was my first day in office, and all of a sudden a light bulb goes off in my head. Well, here's my economic strategy plan. Here's the actual pathway to make San Leandro into a new hub of innovation in the Bay Area. We had an agreement formed between the city and Dr. Kennedy for a partnership called Lit San Leandro, which was then the vehicle that created our fiber optic loop. So Dr. Kennedy paid for the installation of the fiber into the city conduit. We agreed to lease it to him at no charge for a period of time, 10 years, which he could then extend. And the idea was that other businesses could come on to the fiber loop at a very low cost, and we could then distinguish ourselves in the greater Bay Area by having the highest internet access. With every city, you want to have a vibrant downtown, and because that's the center of social life, or it should be. And one of the projects that we worked on was the Village Marketplace here in San Leandro. It had been a Lucky's store, and then Lucky's closed down, and ultimately the property was demolished and it had just become a parking lot. So we worked with a developer to come on board and create a new development. It was specifically a Pete's Coffee, a Habit Burger, an AT&T commercial store, and a CVS pharmacy. And then that allowed us to also attract other businesses once they saw this investment occurring. So we got Chipotle Mexican restaurant to come in across the street. At the same time, we worked with Caltrans to get them to repave downtown San Leandro. And then we added in lights, little small LED lights at night to just create a nice atmosphere. One of the major things that happened under my term as mayor was the opening of the new Kaiser Hospital. It's a state-of-the-art hospital. At the same time, it's in an industrial area. So the question became, well, how are we going to support the hospital by looking at possible changes to the zoning code? How are we going to expand the economic opportunities for San Leandrons and other businesses that will now be adjacent to the hospital? From that idea came this new generation workplace study, because we realized we don't want to look only at Kaiser and the surrounding area. We want to look at our whole industrial area and how can we revitalize it. And once we looked at it through that prism, then we realized, well, we need to look at possible changes to the zoning code. We need to look at what are the businesses that would do best in San Leandro, and have a strategy for going out and attracting them, and how can we make physical improvements to the industrial area to make it more interesting, more exciting for other businesses to come into town. We were ultimately able to attract 21st Amendment Brewery. So here was a brewery that had great reputation, but more of a restaurant brew pub in San Francisco that, though, was distributing beer all throughout Northern California based upon a production facility back in Minnesota. They wanted to bring their production back to California, and they looked around the Bay Area, and we were able to bring them into San Leandro. And now they're on Williams Street, and it recently opened, and it's going to be one of the largest breweries in the Bay Area in Northern California, and it joins, of course, Drake's and another small microbrewery here in town.
The most enjoyable thing I did as mayor was go to classrooms and talk to students about being mayor. And I have a big smile on my face because I think every single experience was quite joyful. And it's very interesting because every classroom has a different personality and every age group has a different personality. And I have to say I very much enjoyed spending time with some of the younger students, because the younger students have this very interesting image of their mayor. Always write wonderful notes with pictures. After you leave, you get these big envelopes of pictures from the students all thanking you for what you talked about. And it's just the dearest experience. When you go into the high schools, it's a little bit different. You often find a little bit of cynicism. It's not going to make a difference if I'm involved. Why should I be involved? That sort of thing. And I have really enjoyed going into those classrooms and sitting with students and talking about like different current events that are happening in San Leandro and discussing with them, how they feel about it. And, often you get, well, I don't like that and I'd like to change that. And then working on having them understand that they can be part of a process to make that change, and teaching them about how important it is to register to vote, how important it is to attend city council meetings from time to time. Or if you really care about something, go to the council meeting and go talk to the council members. They'll listen to you. They'll be involved in what you have to say, and they'll care what you have to say. And the analogy I always would like to use with them is, just think about this. Local government, or any type of government, is really like a table. It's a big table. There's so many seats at that table. You're sitting around that table, and only the people sitting at that table are part of that conversation. So if there's going to be a change and you're going to make a difference, you have to be sitting at that table. You can't be over here. But if you're at that table, you're part of that conversation and you will make a difference. And I remember, again, also hearing from these students saying, that really makes sense. I'm going to get more involved. I'm going to do something. So the fact that I had the opportunity to go into these classrooms and talk about how government worked in a real sense and how it impacted them and their community, it was just a great experience. And my hope is that I've inspired some young people to be involved in public service.
When you look at creates a thriving community, there's a few key elements. One, of course, is a robust local economy. Another element is the level of crime and the safety of people, quality of the housing stock, and also, though, the schools. And that's an area where an active mayor who's supportive can make a real difference. I was unique in that my children were attending public schools. I also came as mayor from the school board. I was the first mayor of our city to have served as a school board trustee. And that gave me a unique perspective. I truly understood that for San Leandro to shine, we needed our schools to shine. So in every way that I possibly could, I looked to strengthening the partnership, expanding the partnership, while still operating within the fiscal constraints that we as a city had. So one example was we were able to loan at a very low interest rate money for the school district to purchase what was the former Girls Inc. building right next to San Leandro High School that's now being converted into a student health center. So for the first time, we'll have a health center for our high school kids. It will also be open to other members of the community. It will also serve kids at the middle school level. We also looked at the expansion of Burrell Field, the modernization that occurred by the school district under their Measure M bond, and looked at the relationship in terms of the service that the city provided for maintenance, and entered into an agreement where we were undertaking much of the cost because the city uses many of those fields through our Little League and other youth programs to reduce the costs that the school district would have otherwise had to incur. The city, of course, is more than just, is it safe? How are the public schools? How's the housing? And how's the economy? It's, what nurtures the soul. And there are many elements of that. Our parks are so important. And San Leandro is unique because we have over 20 parks and we're only a small city. One thing that happened while I was mayor was that we received money through the East Bay Park District through a measure called WW. That was then allocated to restore and upgrade many of our parks across the city, including the park course down at the Marina Park on our shoreline, and putting in new water system, which turned out very beneficial once we had a drought.
The big difference between being in the council and mayor is everybody expects the mayor is the boss. And everybody wants the mayor at a function. I mean, whether it's a school function or a reading function. And I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time being mayor, not necessarily during the day, but weekend. You never had a free weekend. You never had a lot of night meetings with different organizations. You met with all the homeowners associations. The people still today remember that I was mayor, not how long I was mayor. They just remember that I was mayor, and they still respect the office.
Being able to be in the position of mayor and really make a difference for your community in very significant ways. It's the greatest job, really, in the world. And the work in particular as a mayor and working with my colleagues and my council members, that was just invaluable when I was asked to become the majority leader of the California State Senate.
Overall feel of having been mayor, I went everywhere and did everything. It was a huge learning curve for me, but I loved every waking moment of being the mayor of the city.
I think personally I've had a fortuitous life. I was able to go to school on a GI Bill, get my degree, go to work in the insurance industry for 40 years, and served 18 years on a city council, 4 as mayor. I think that's good enough for a kid who came out of the Depression out of Hawaii.
You can make a real difference in your community, and in a way that you can't make if you're not holding public office. And it can be from little things to major things. A city is kind of like a big oil tanker. To get it to move, it's very slow. But once you do get it to move in a new direction, it's amazing what you can accomplish.
I'm Pauline Russo-Cutter, and I've been the mayor since January 2015. And I would really like to thank the mayors who have come before me because they've set up our city to be what it is today. You've heard from 5 mayors in the past telling you all about all the good things that they and their councils have done along with the community. And I'd like to just add a few of my dreams for the future. and sustainability in our infrastructure, and also really in being the city that people want to come to and live and raise their families. So with that, you've heard the mayors talk about Lit San Leandro and what a game changer it was for San Leandro. But since January 2015, we've almost doubled the number of miles we have. We've made communities wireless, our public spaces wireless. We've also connected 15 of our schools to this, which is a game changer for San Leandro. Our students are now ready to deal with the 21st century. What a boost for them. San Leandro is a place where people want to come back and they want to raise their families and work, and they have all these amenities to do it. And I guess the most important is our footprint that we're leaving to our world. We have done a lot with our power companies and what kind of power we're going to use. We're making San Leandro into a smart city. And a smart city is one that uses its data to make decisions based on their energy usage. So when you add that whole package together with our past and all of the things that have been done and our dreams for the future, you have San Leandro being a great place to live. As I leave office, I'm confident San Leandro is in an even greater place to live and a city moving forward. Throughout the 4 years on the council and 8 as mayor, it's been my pleasure to represent our entire community, including the city, businesses, schools, to advocate for our future. The city has changed in many ways, yet the core is what makes our city special. As I recall, when taking office, residents were advocating for code compliance, a variety of restaurants, and fixing potholes. Well, we fixed the first 2 concerns and we're actively working on the third. We're a welcoming community where everyone has a place. We've nurtured our children as well as our seniors, and we're working to make sure that our most vulnerable are cared for while promoting the businesses and celebrating our successes. San Leandro is truly a city where kindness matters. Over the years, I have held many positions of leadership while representing our city, and these leadership positions mean as much to me because I was elected by my peers in other cities and jurisdictions to lead them. I also believe that we in San Leandro must always be on the forefront of making positive change, leading other cities and communities around us to a common good, both locally and regionally. I'm heartened that my colleagues were confident I would represent my city and all other stakeholders to make the decisions to improve our region. When I was first elected to the council, I was proud to take a lead in helping the city adopt a more equitable sewer cost-sharing plan with its residents. I helped my neighbors in the north area work with the police department to enhance the safety of our businesses and was able to shepherd the Siempre Verde project, working with the community, including Councilmember Lopez, and we were there to build this beautiful park. We've been working on the Marina project for about as long as I can remember and have been on the council. And so I'm glad to know that we're much closer to having new housing, parks, a new library, and an enhanced golf course with groundbreaking imminent. Thank you to prior councils and to our current one for laying this groundwork and identifying the fundraising to make this shoreline park a reality. It's a big lift. I encourage this new council and those that follow to stay the course, and that includes possibly the most public input of San Leandro's history to develop this amazing project to our city. I'm proud of our public-private partnerships, especially the one with Patrick Kennedy, allowing our city to have over 25 miles of hyper-fast fiber loop. This has been a game changer for our city and brought San Leandro into the smart city realm. Much of the early years of my mayorship included time spent working with other communities to advance smart city techniques and practices. Our reputation was worldwide as I was asked to represent our city in China and Europe, speaking on some of our smart city initiatives. Along with smart city advances, I'm proud of my leadership supporting the first resiliency officer, Sally Barros, in Alameda County, certainly the first in a smaller city. Through Sally's work, our city was able to update our climate action plan and really hone in on how we meet our goals earlier than originally planned. We remember Sally as a fierce advocate, including inspiring all of us to make meaningful strides against the effects of climate change. While working with Stop Waste many years ago, we studied the concept of community energy group modeled after the North Bay, and now our community has adopted the standard where all of our energy comes from renewable sources. This with the work to provide solar to the community and working in the city, building new charging stations for transit, and having the first biodiesel fueling station will allow us to meet our climate action goals much sooner than planned. I'm at ease knowing that I'm leaving the city in a good financial position. We've paid down our unfunded liabilities and have mapped out a way to make sure our OPEB and future obligations will be paid. We have long-term contracts with our bargaining groups to reinforce the staff stability within our city. With that said, I know we have a large capital improvement project list that is unfunded. Getting these improvements, because they're important projects, built will take planning and setting priorities, and that along with the help of the community to set those priorities. I encourage the council and staff to continue to pay attention to the budget, making sure we keep our very excellent credit rating. I'm so proud of my part in our budget and financial processes. With the support of my colleagues, about 8 years ago we started the pool plan, and now we have over $18 million in the account that will help smooth out the near term ahead of us when we have a rise in our pension obligations. San Leandro has built many new housing projects, but we all know more housing is sorely needed, all types of housing, and our council has advocated for projects. I encourage the future councils to do the same. One of the reasons I hear repeatedly on why people move to our city is because of the great neighborhoods. Planning housing where these new projects complement our neighborhoods is very important. I'm looking forward to welcoming more housing and new neighbors so we can share our city. These past few years have been challenging with the COVID pandemic and the harm that has been done to the people, the businesses, and our general way of life. Our children endured almost 2 years of Zoom education, with teachers needing to work so hard to recreate the curriculum they are traditionally taught. City government had to adapt from tradition, in-person meetings to virtual. This period took a toll on many staff members, our council as well as the community. And we had many folks who lost their jobs and couldn't afford to pay their basic needs. We had businesses who closed, and there was a general hopelessness feeling at times. We are slowly recovering, and I'm grateful that we're all able to gather in person, and ever hopeful that being together will increase our connectedness and enhance the communities and our differences. As a council, we needed to shift our direction from businesses as usual to making sure that we took care of our community. I'm proud that we gave each food pantry $15,000 to get food into homes, gave small businesses loans to keep the doors open, and arranged for rent programs to help people stay in their homes or businesses. We streamlined outdoor eating permits. We made other changes to make it easier to operate a business during COVID. We sponsored COVID testing sites and helped our community face these unprecedented challenges. As we are having everything in place to open the city's first and hopefully not only navigation center, we are proud of the progress that we've made. Kudos to our staff and to the council for all the work getting to this point, and we work together as a community to establish and accomplish these objectives. During my second term as mayor, we highlighted the call for equity, inclusion, and diversity that needs to permeate throughout our community, our city hall, and businesses. 2.5 years ago, the video of George Floyd was a wake-up call to remind us all that racial inequities that still thrive in some parts of our world, our nation, and locally too. We've had our own similar tragedy with Stephen Taylor's death. We had a lot of conversations and reflections on how we could do better, and we took some concrete and I would say progressive steps to allow us to not forget, yet to start to heal. Also, recognizing the great need for effective mental health services, City Manager Fran Robustelli, with the help of the council, separated Recreation and Human Services into 2 separate entities. Recreation is now a division within the City Manager's office, and Human Services is a standalone department. We have done a lot of work with the SEED Collaborative to talk about the social equity. We brought together a community budget task force, and we have now seated a police review committee. We can and we will do better to continue this legacy. I would ask all residents to get involved and advocate to the county for additional funding so this meaningful work could continue. I also will be spending time as I retire working for common sense gun laws so we don't wake up every day and hear about our youth getting harmed or killed by gun violence. That's a very important thing. Recently, I was invited to India because of our work as a city of compassion and being a city where kindness matters. The trip to India was a rewarding experience to end my public service. Participating in a visit with His Holiness the Dalai Lama was a joy and a privilege I will never forget. During this delegations meeting, the Dalai Lama continued to emphasize the need to uplift humanity because every person is important to our world. I hope the city will continue with the kindness initiative. I have a note of gratitude for groups of people who helped me along with my public service journey. To our city staff, I'm deeply proud of you and the excellent work that you conduct daily for our community. Thank you for making me feel like such a part of the team, successfully running our city. We have done many great and memorable things together. As mayor, I can make promises to our residents, but I know without our employees' support, my commitments would be empty words. I have made many treasured friendships with many of you, and I truly thank you for being so inclusive. One of the best city council hires is offering the city manager position to Fran Robustelli. As the first permanent city manager, Fran has operated the city with humility, grace, openness, physically minded, and an eye for future planning, and as a servant leader. Additionally, I'm proud to see the diversity of cultures represented in our executive team and at the management level. To our residents of our city, thank you for entrusting me to represent you in an elected position these last 24 years. First as a school board trustee, and the last 12 as your District 5 council member and mayor of San Leandro. That trust has always been my guidance when making decisions, and I'm proud of the shared accomplishments we've made. To my friends and the Broadmoor Babes, my good friends, who have helped me weather the storms on the council and helped me reorient and re-engage, which has helped me immeasurably. I gained so much from your support. And to my family, Scott, Gina, Nate, Eltine, Layla, Jesse, Monica, Clay, and Debbie. We have had many discussions, and I've learned so much from you. I know all of you were in my mind when I was making decisions. Thank you so much for allowing me to live out my dream of working to a better city. And now, Scott, we can both relax a bit and enjoy our lives. Lastly, in this speech, I have said a lot, but I firmly believe we are better when we are working together. We had the benefits of the leadership before us, and the city will go on way past my tenure. It is so important to be inclusive, especially listening to points that are not your own. Don't divide the city thinking that there is only one way forward, please. Please work for everyone in San Leandro, not just your own group, because everyone matters in an inclusive city. And I'm proud of the work that we've done by becoming an inclusive and kind city where diversity is something we value and that we're proud of. No matter your ethnicity, whom you love, or how you view yourself, San Leandro is truly a city where kindness matters. And I thank you.